Before we dive in, a big thank you to Banksia Tech for supporting this episode. Proud distributors of the Hansen Rehab Glove by Sorebo. It's designed to help the stroke survivor improve hand function at home. Whether you're early in recovery or years into it, you'll hear more about it later in this episode. Links are in the YouTube description and at recoveryafterstroke.com. Now, what if a split-second movement during a ski trip was all it took to change everything? That's what happened to Lara Kaufman, a 41-year-old mother of three from Canada. One moment she was gliding off a chairlift, the next a jolt to her neck caused an internal carotid artery dissection and a massive ischemic stroke. Within hours, Lara was fighting for her life. Complete left side paralysis, a craniotomy, months in hospital, years of uncertainty. But she didn't stop at survival. She kept going long after the statistics said she should have plateaued. If you've ever wondered whether recovery is still possible years down the track, if you've struggled with spasticity or been told you'll never by a doctor, if you're searching for purpose beyond the pain, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Lara Kaufman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit about what life was like before stroke.
Before stroke, I have three children. I have twin daughters and a son. My twin daughters were 10 and a half. My son was 8 and a half. I was a full-time working super mom. I'm a chartered accountant. So I was working and actually at the time I wasn't in public practice anymore. I was working with my husband in the pet food business and working quite long hours. And then on February 13th, 2010, we took a trip to Collingwood, Ontario, which is about 2 hours outside of Toronto for a ski day. And after a few runs up and down the hill, I got off the chairlift and I was walking toward the descent and it's flat. And I don't know if you ski, but when you walk on a flat surface, you walk with your skis out like this and you use your poles.
In a
And
V
so I
shape,
used
and
my
you
poles,
drag yourself along with the poles.
correct. And the basket of my pole got stuck under my right ski. And instead of going like this to yank to remove it, the basket from the pole, I went like this, really hard, really fast with the blunt end and punched myself in my carotid artery. That caused a carotid artery dissection, which then caused a blood clot, which then caused a massive stroke at the top of the hill. And all I know is my right eye was blurry, I was dizzy, and I felt, okay, I don't think I should ski down this hill. And my husband was on the chairlift behind me. So when he saw me, he said I was foaming at the mouth, and eventually I collapsed onto my knees. And, I said, I don't think you should ski down the hill. And he goes, okay, it's okay, And he kept saying, I kept hearing, stay with me, stay with me. The kids were screaming. And from your children's cries, there's a hungry cry, they're older, but there's a hungry cry, that there's a scared cry, and a tired cry. This was a scared cry and something I'd never heard before. And I didn't pass out. I was very awake, but not alert, just awake. And then eventually my husband called for ski patrol, who then came and they called 911 and the paramedics came. They said they didn't see stroke right away for some reason. I don't know why, but they did take me to the hospital. But that hospital, because it's a small town, for whatever reason, there was no CAT scan machine there. They have one now, but at the time they didn't. So then they took me to another hospital, and there they diagnosed with a carotid artery dissection, and I need a neurosurgeon. There wasn't one there. So fortunately, my aunt's brother was one of the top neurosurgeons in the country. And so my dad called him. He's also a friend of my father. So my father called him, told him what had transpired. And they said they want to take her to Toronto, which is where I live, and large city. And they back in the ambulance I went, because apparently there were two snowflakes in the air, so the helicopters had to wait a half an hour to fly. And as you know, with stroke, it's
Time.
time, so they back in the ambulance, another hour back to Toronto. When we got to the hospital, my husband said there were like 40 people waiting in the bay for me. He's thinking, what great service, not realizing you only get that service when there's something, you know, terribly wrong. At this point, he hadn't heard the word stroke or brain damage. So he didn't know what was what. And they go into the hospital and the chaplain's pulling my husband aside. And my husband's like, no, I'm going with my wife. And he still had his ski boots on because he figured we'd go get checked out and then go back to the ski hill. And then the doctor came over. My parents met my husband and I there, and they took my parents and my husband to the quiet room. This is where they give you,
The bad news.
the bad news, saying that I had a stroke and there was significant brain damage, and the next 48 hours would be critical.
Wow.
And at this point, I was oblivious to everything going on. And
Did you have a realization at the time that you injured yourself? Did you connect the two?
I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what. I didn't know stroke. I just knew something was wrong. I felt dizzy. I said my right eye was, but I said, "Oh no, I did something very bad. Something's wrong." I didn't know what. I didn't know how serious. I just knew something was wrong,
Right.
and that I shouldn't ski down the hill because I don't think it's safe. That's all I could think about.
Yeah.
And
So you made
when I got,
a couple of
yeah,
decisions that were critical to making the outcome even better than what it was. That was a really good result from what happened. Um, you you hit yourself with the blunt part of the handle
yes,
on the
I
pole.
had the handle in my handle, and I went like this really hard, but it was like this, like jerk,
Yeah.
because I was pulling it up. Instead of going like this, I went like this, really hard, really fast. And it was if I'd hit my chin, maybe I would have fractured my chin
Yeah.
and had surgery, and that would have been the end of it. But because I happened to hit my carotid artery,
Yeah.
the effects of that. If hadn't hit it so hard, maybe I would have bruised it. There was no mark on my neck. There was
Yeah.
nothing. There was no cut. There was no mark. Nothing.
So
It's all internal.
from the injury to hospital, how long passed? How much time do you think?
So from injury to the first hospital, I'm probably going to say about half an hour, and then probably it was probably about 3 or 4 after 4 hours by the time I got to the
Yeah.
hospital in Toronto. But
Right.
apparently, because it was the blunt force trauma, I wouldn't have qualified for the TPA drug
No. No.
because my husband did inquire about that.
Yeah.
If they could have taken the helicopter, could they have given me this drug? And they said no, didn't qualify.
Yeah. The amount of time had elapsed as well. So, how long before you came kind of back into the land of the living? Were you aware? Was there a moment where you went from being kind of oblivious to then into awareness?
Yeah, so sometime later that day, when I was told that I had a stroke. Now, my grandfather, who I never met, who I'm named after, in 1964, I think it was, or 65, before I was born, had a stroke. He had heart disease, and there was no blood thinners back then. And so I didn't know this at the time. I thought my grandfather died of a stroke. In fact, he survived the stroke, but he died a year and a half later of a heart attack. So my thinking, because I didn't know that I said, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. That's, I have to be around for my kids. Like, I don't want to die. That's all I could think about is I don't want to die. And I was scared. And, my husband was saying, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Even though he didn't know that or not, he just,
Lied. He lied.
he lied.
A,
And he's not a
a little
liar,
white
but
lie. That's a good lie.
yeah.
Trying to keep you
And
calm.
then I just remember they kept giving me CAT scans like I don't know if it's every 4 hours or every 8 hours. And the bed was very cold and I was freezing. And so those are the things, it was the little things that I remember, not so much the big picture, because I was not told about the big picture.
Mm, mm.
And then they were monitoring me to see if I needed a craniotomy because my brain was swelling.
Ah, okay.
Had the surgery 4 days later. And I remember I had to sign something to allow me to authorize the surgery. My husband had to sign too because they knew that I
Up to it.
wasn't 100% there.
Yeah. So you had a craniotomy.
Yeah,
How much of the skull did they remove?
like the
Half of it.
whole, yeah, like the whole, yeah, scar this big.
Wow.
And they took it out for February 17th, 18th, whatever that day was. They took it out and they put it back at the end of April.
Now, if you're working on hand recovery after stroke, there's a tool worth knowing about. The Hansen Glove by Cerebo, available through Banksia Tech. It's safe to use at home even years after stroke, with 6 therapy modes including stretch, grasp and release, and a patented mirror function. It helps retrain your brain and hand together. Banksia Tech ships internationally and it qualifies as low cost assistive technology. Visit banksiatech.com.au or check out the links in the YouTube description and show notes at recoveryafterstroke.com to learn more. Now let's take a moment. You've just heard Lara describe the surreal moment she hit her carotid artery and how within hours her world collapsed into chaos. Paralysis and silence. She lost her ability to walk, to sit, to move, and yet she found a way forward. If you're in that in between place, not where you were, not where you want to be, just know this: the plateau is not the end. Healing does not follow a schedule. Hope is still on the table. Let's get back to Lara and what happened when she started helping others. February, March, April. So about 3 months in total.
Yeah. Yeah, they kept it out, and then I had to wear a hockey helmet. Not in the hospital, but when I went to the rehab hospital, I had to wear a hockey helmet because the only thing separating my brain from the outside world was my skin.
Yeah.
So if I fell and hit my head, it's game over.
How do you deal with that? So I, a few months earlier, you were running around the business, the kids, being a usual, normal, healthy person. You go skiing, you get an injury, you wake up in hospital, you've had a stroke, now your brain's swelling, and then one day you wake up after a craniotomy with half of your skull missing, parked in a box somewhere in a refrigerator or
I
something.
don't think I really understood what was going on. It's like you get this information, you're like, okay, okay, like you just gotta go with it. And you don't really understand the ramifications of what's really gone on. I thought this was February. We were supposed to go to Florida in March, and I thought I was going. Like I didn't. I didn't. And my husband says, "You're not going to Florida." I go, "Yeah, yeah, we are going. Don't worry, it's okay. We'll go." I
Wow, the
didn't really get
delusion
it.
was huge. That's
Yeah.
okay. I understand it as well. Now, did you catch yourself in the mirror? Did you have a look and go, what on earth is going on here? What am I looking
No.
at here?
No, I did
Wow.
not look. I knew that after the craniotomy, my eyes were swollen shut. Like I could see
Uh,
cracks. And so I knew there's no way I look good. And because of that, I didn't want anybody taking my picture. I regret it now because I would have loved to see what I looked like then. It would also help, see how far I've come, even though I know I've come a long way.
yeah,
I wish I had pictures from back then, but I didn't want anybody taking my picture. So
yeah, fair enough. And then what about the part of the surgery when they put it back? What is that like? What is that
I
experience?
remember that more because I had been in rehab for 6 weeks, maybe longer. And so I like, there were little things like in the rehab hospital, the nurses transfer you from wheelchair to bed, and back. Whereas in the hospital, in order to get to wheelchair, they gotta lift you in this, I call it the elephant lift, with the parachute. And then they bring you down, they put you in, you feel like you're this elephant in a zoo being lifted up and putting it because the nurses aren't trained to transfer you, which was such a simple thing. So there were, and I was more aware when I was in the hospital the second time than I was the first time. Much more aware of my surroundings, the people, the nurses, everything.
Sounds like the healing of the brain had started to happen already.
Yeah,
It had swelling had gone down, things started to come back online, and
yeah,
it gave you the opportunity to be more with it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And I was. I mean, at least I feel I was.
yeah. Was there, that part where you forbid images, photos, that type of thing? Do you think it was part of the um, not having accepted what happened, or was it actually just because of the way that you looked and or thought
I
you looked or what you thought it
thought
meant?
all this was temporary. I really
Okay,
thought this was all temporary and this was a blip in this, in the scheme of things. And that's just not having a full grasp of what really happened.
just being ignorant about stroke, which is normal at your
Ignorant
age in
about
that part of
stroke,
life.
ignorant about my situation. The doctor said, it'll take you 2 years to recover. You'll be back to, they didn't say back to normal, but when they said it'll be about a 2-year recovery, in my mind, in 2 years I'll be back to normal.
Be
How
back to
ignorant,
normal,
I don't know
whatever.
what word.
I know. It's an interesting statement because everyone who's been through stroke kind of has a moment like that. They have the back to normal moment, and then they have the there is no back to normal, and then that's a
Yeah,
moment as well, and that's pretty dramatic.
absolutely.
Um, but yeah, craniotomy tends to be a bit more dramatic, and therefore more recovering, more healing, more areas that have been impacted, interacted with, touched. Um, there's so much to comprehend, for the body to comprehend and realign and readjust, not to mention the possibility that you've got deficits from the actual stroke, the part of the
Yeah.
injury which shut down your brain, some of your brain cells. So, where is that? What type of injuries did you end up with after the stroke?
So when I had my stroke, was completely paralyzed on the entire left side of my body, couldn't feel a thing, and my brain didn't recognize the left side at all. So my midline, which used to be center, was now moved, to the right side, and I couldn't even sit in a wheelchair because I kept falling over because I had no trunk support at all, and I went from that to, the recovery was, I felt was slow, and nobody feels it's fast, but in hindsight, it was actually pretty quick. Um, Looking back now that it's been 15 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can now walk 5 kilometers, maybe six, at one time. And I'm fairly independent. My left arm is still partially paralyzed, so I don't have a lot of use of it. Um, but I've learned to do most things with my right hand. So I've just kind of made do
Yep.
with what I have. And I've always had a positive outlook on things. I really just believe that, there was a higher reason for all this. I read a book many, many years ago called Why Bad Things Happen to Good People.
Mm-hmm.
And although I don't remember the details of the book, I remember, the title, it's in the title, that there's, why bad, but the good things come from it, and so I said to my husband, there's got to be silver linings here. This is so bad. There's got to be silver linings. And I kept looking, I was like this for the first 2 years looking for where are they? Where
Where
are
are
they?
they?
And then someone told me when you're meant to find them, you will. And then I would say about 6 months after that conversation, I was approached by March of Dimes Canada, which is a disability charity organization helping people with disability, empowering people with disabilities in Canada. And I got involved with them they had a stroke program they were looking for stroke survivors to peer counsel stroke survivors that were in the hospital. And my doctor thought I'd be a great person to do it. And I said, okay, here's my reason. And I started doing, I went to the rehab hospital every week for 2 hours from 2013 until 2020, till COVID,
Mm.
and then started doing it online. having
Yeah.
one-to-one calls, and really helped me, talk to people, meet people from all over with all walks of life and listen to their stories. And it helped me in my journey as well. And I would go and I'd feel, they were so thankful that I used to come home feeling very selfish I'd get such good feedback from it that I'm thinking, but I'm such a selfish person because I'm getting the rewards, when I know in fact it's the opposite and I'm helping them. But it's just the way I really enjoyed it, and I still do it to this day. And
You describe
whenever they ask me to do something, I just don't say no. So I'm now co-facilitating a peer support group, a new pilot project.
it's
And I was awarded.
weird, isn't it? Like you're describing me exactly. It's exactly what happened to me. Is I went to the Stroke Foundation. They put me in touch with stroke survivors. We started to share, feel a little bit more like understanding and empathy and
Yeah,
support. And then from there, I volunteered. So I started coaching, telling people about stroke, raising awareness in the community, what the signs are, what to do if you think somebody's having a stroke, that kind of stuff.
amazing.
Awesome. And I was the same. I was coming home going, oh, this is really cool. I'm getting a lot out of this. And then I thought I need more than that. I don't think I need to create a community online. All these seeds were planted by other people, by the way. It wasn't me that came up with them. And then I just found myself doing the podcast and then, being 30, 40, 50 episodes in and going, oh, this is really cool. I'm getting so much out of this. I didn't know that the stroke survivors on the other end of the Zoom call were getting something out of it as well, which was just my naivety, just thought, it's a good thing.
100%.
It's a good thing. I'm getting something out of it. Bonus.
Yeah.
And then I started to really get excited when people started sharing that they were needing that episode. Thank you for that episode. It's great that I found this person. I connected with this person. I reached out to this doctor because of what you interviewed them about. Like, and that was
Yeah.
mind blown. And then it was around episode 40 when I said stroke was the best thing that happened to me. And that's the thing is how do you describe that to somebody who's so early on that you have the opportunity to get there? It's not the best physical experience, health experience. It's not that part that's good. It's what comes of it later.
Uh, yeah.
And I was looking for a word to describe it. I didn't know how do you package all of those amazingness and then just say it in one sentence so somebody knows what the heck you're on about, right? And
Yeah.
I stumbled across the work of Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, two researchers in the United States that coined the term post-traumatic growth. And that's me to a T, right? And my book is called The Unexpected
Me
Way That
too.
Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened. And in there are the 10 steps to get somebody to experience post-traumatic growth. They're the things that I did and all the things that the other people did that said that that stroke was the
I,
best thing that happened to them. Do you know?
yeah,
It's
a
so
hundred percent.
it's so weird, but that is the opportunity that arises. And just for the people listening and everyone know what post-traumatic growth means, it's something that happens after a trauma. The trauma doesn't have to be a stroke, a death of a loved one. Trauma is on a spectrum and it's different for everybody. So it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what the trauma is. And basically, if you experience after that particular incident spiritual development, um, a sense of new personal strength, you improve your relationships, a greater appreciation for life, and you have taken action of or you've seen new possibilities, you're experiencing post traumatic growth. That's what
I love it. I love
has
it.
come after all of the trauma that you went through. And
Yeah.
that's what it's about. It's about, and it came to me more than anything after I did things for other people. Stopped making about me and started making about other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like one of the first people that when I went to the hospital, one of the first patients that I had visited, she said to me, I've read about stroke in a book, but I didn't know what it looked like until you walked in the room. And I was like blown away, like, wow, like the impact that I could have. And, you know, as a mother, you just want to have an impact on your kids, right?
Yeah.
You kind of don't think beyond that. But to have this kind of impact like you're doing as well, it's quite remarkable.
It expands your horizons. You go from your identity being I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a I work, I've got a job, I run a business, to something more than that. I don't know what those other things are for other people, but for me, it's somebody, who has a community, who helps people, who people help me, who I'm a connector. I can connect people from all over the world. Um,
Yeah.
like now, Stroke Foundation call me, you know, ridiculously almost every second day. Can you do this? Can you help out with that? Can you do? And it's
Yeah, of
always
course.
like you. It's a yes. Um, so there is something there is something about it where you don't realize the benefits for the greater community and yourself, and therefore how you turn up at home, how the example you're setting for your kids, what happens after adversity. You go through a really tough time, but how can you behave after
Yeah.
that? Regardless of what your deficits are, what your problems are, how do you respond? And then you give them a sense of, if you guys ever find yourself in a terrible situation, here's one example of how you can
Well,
tackle it.
it's exactly what happened. So in grade 12, one of my daughters, it was a little thing, but one of her daughters was having difficulty with one of her teachers, and her teacher, I don't know, just there's issues. And I said to her, I said, you can give up or you can, you know, persevere. And I said, look what I've done. You've seen me persevere. You can persevere too, because one thing that's for sure guaranteed, that shit's gonna happen in life. It happens to everybody in different forms. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's family problems, but stuff's gonna happen. I believe everybody gets hit with something. So it's not what you can't control. What you can control is how you react to those things that happen.
Yeah,
That's the one thing we still have, is the control of how to respond to that.
yeah,
And so you can curl up in a ball and cry and live your life that way. And your community and friends are probably going to drift off, because people don't want to be, people aren't, don't want to be around that. Or you can stand up straight, and dust, you know, brush the dust off and get to work and do what you have to do. And what you don't have to go and volunteer. You don't have to,
no,
just have to just get back up and do what you got to do.
yeah, yeah. I think you have to learn, don't you? You have to learn about yourself, about the situation, about how you can heal, how you can overcome. You have to backfill those skills that you didn't get along the way, that are going to be necessary for you to use to get you
And
to
the
the next
yeah,
stage.
and what I found is you have to accept. You have to
Mm.
accept what happened. As soon as you accept what happened, then okay, now what do I have to do?
Yes.
What do I want to do? What do I have to do?
Again, opens up more opportunities, acceptance. I feel like it just opens up solutions rather
Yes.
than problems.
Exactly. You go right to the solutions, as opposed to, woe is me, and, why me? And this is, yes, it sucks. It's not a picnic. It's not a walk. It's a mountain climb. It's not a walk in the park. And it's challenging, and you're gonna cry, and you're gonna scream and yell and go through all the emotions, but go through them,
Yeah, go
do
through
it.
them. Yeah, exactly. Was there someone that you bumped into or that sort of turned up out of nowhere that you thought, oh wow, and kind of helped you take the next step? Did you have a did somebody like I had a couple of people who sort of turned up out of nowhere, stepped up, became my mentors, people I didn't expect, and they created like a shift in my trajectory. Did you have that type of
Well,
experience?
I can't say that new people per se. My
No.
husband was and is my rock, and he, Googled, spoke to everybody, anybody he possibly could about stroke recovery and where to go. And so he laid the groundwork and found all the right, people to contact, and helped me take those first steps. When I came home, the after outpatient, the right private therapists and social worker, physio, occupational therapists and all that. Um, and so it was all about recovery at the beginning. And then my doctor was my physiatrist at my hospital was also a huge help. She sort of became an unofficial quarterback. And I say unofficial because it's not her role. She's the one who introduced me to the March of Dimes Canada program and said, this is the person, this is the contact person you call, if you want to do this. And so I called and, got involved. And then from there, got involved in lots of other things afterwards.
Yeah. Did you have
But
did you have
and
moments
my
of go ahead?
go ahead, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
I was saying my friends rallied around us. Our friends and family were huge. Was very lucky to have a massive support system.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really
That,
important.
that was helped. Cousins drove me to my therapy appointments, and when my mother couldn't do it. So I was very fortunate to have that support system. Not everybody has.
Yeah.
And everyone rallied around us and brought dinners to my home for my family. Picked up my kids, took my kids, my best friend organized like a grocery list, grocery shopping every week. People would sign up to do groceries every week for my family. And organized pickups for my kids, the play dates and people's and other after school programs. So I was really lucky to have that.
Yeah, wow, what a community. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
Um,
people who I wasn't friends with would like call my friends and say, how can I help? I want to do something. So it was amazing.
yeah, you do find people come out of nowhere. All of a sudden,
Yes.
family and friends, they're obliged to an extent, but then I just had some people, random people who I knew, but
Yeah.
didn't really know who did so much. And it was like, and then they did their job and then they kind of went off and disappeared again. And I was like, well, what's all that about? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the way that it happened, whatever. I don't have any expectations beyond that, but it was just amazing. They've just rocked up, they put the cape on, they did their thing, and then they just slowly kind of, you know, went back to the place where they were when
Yeah. And
we
I,
knew
and,
each
and
other.
a few people did that, and I was okay. I was very
Yeah,
grateful for what I got. I
yeah,
never really questioned or said,
yeah,
"Oh, you should have done more. You should have done this." I was just very grateful for what I got. I
yeah,
got a
yeah,
lot. So I was very grateful.
yeah. Did you have, surely there were times when you had doubts and concerns and worries about everything you're going through, what the future looks like. Are you that,
Yeah. At
did
the
you
two and
have
a
the
half
speed
year
humps?
mark, at the 2.5 year mark, when the doctor said in the hospital it's going to take 3 year to recover. So I get to 2.5 years and I'm like, this is it. Like seriously, after everything I have done for the past 2.5 years, this is all I got. And I was like, and my physiotherapist said, it's not true. It's not true. You stop recovering when you give up. Because if you don't give up, you'll always recover. He goes, you'll plateau. Your recovery will be you'll improve, you'll plateau, you'll improve, plateau, you'll do this. And he said, so don't listen to that. And he was right. And I've plateaued many times over the 15.5 years, and sometimes plateaued for 6 to 7 months where I've just been the same. But then I keep going and then I start to see improvement and so on and so forth. So um, my biggest pet peeve is hearing people say, the doctor said I'd never do dot dot dot. Because then a lot of people say, well, then why should I even try? And I get very angry.
I don't understand why a doctor would say you'll never, and then have and then make a
Because they
statement
don't
about it.
know. The doctors that
Yeah,
save your life in the hospital, they're not involved in the recovery.
yeah,
The physiotherapists that are, but even like I do a lot of public speaking at universities and speak at like physiotherapy conferences and stuff. And I've said, If you never use the word never, because you don't know unless you've got a crystal ball, you don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, you know what science can tells you, but science is improving every day. There's new technologies and therapies being developed every year. And one of the things I did was, in addition to my husband, is I've researched the stroke recovery industry to see what's new in the industry. And I see these new technologies and therapies being developed all over the world. And they're coming to all, in Australia, I've heard things, I've seen things out of the United States and Canada and Israel and Germany, and new things are coming out all the time. And so and I actually last year I went to a town called Victoria, British Columbia, in Canada. It's on the West Coast. And a doctor developed, had a lot of spasticity. And this doctor developed this new therapy treatment called cryoneurolysis. And basically what they do is they inject a very cold needle at minus 88 degrees into your spastic muscles and nerves. And with the water in your muscle, it creates an ice ball. That ice ball effectively destroys the nerve. And the destruction of the nerve, then it's like the middleman between the brain and the muscle takes away the spasticity and for a minimum of 6 to 9 months. So sometimes even longer. And I went last June and it was brilliant and it was a game changer. I had no movement in my arm. My tricep was so tight that I was like straight. It was my right arm, but it was straight. And now I can, well, with assistance of the back of the chair, like with my shoulder stabilization, I can do a bicep curl.
Wow.
I may go back in September for my fingers. My fingers, I still can't open them. I can make a fist, but I can't open them. So he said he would consider maybe doing some different muscles this time.
Can,
But it was a huge thing.
can you ask him for me if he would be on the podcast? I'd love to interview him
Oh,
about
he
that.
probably would in a heartbeat.
Yeah, please.
He's the nicest man, and he actually went to Europe. I don't know how long ago, and he saw they were doing some things like this in Europe. And then with with no money, he started this clinic in Victoria, British Columbia, and he's now training doctors from all over the world
Oh,
to learn this treatment. And
wow. I would
so
love to
if you
interview him.
know of a physiatrist in Melbourne who'd be interested in learning this, he or she can go to Victoria and train.
Yeah. Wow. I'd be up for looking into that, learning more about it, and then going from there. It's the kind of information that people with spasticity, who stroke survivors are so many of,
Oh yeah.
would love to hear about. And it doesn't seem that invasive. It seems like it's a
It's
pretty,
painful.
yep,
It's painful,
uh-huh,
but it's not invasive. There's no drugs.
yep.
And they're not injecting anything into you. They're just putting a very cold needle into you. So it's, using the water and like yeah, and
And,
was amazing.
and then pain decreases your pain and all that type of
It
stuff as well.
decreased my pain, my discomfort. And I was able to like lift my arm all the way back like this. Whereas before I could get to here, now I can go all the way back. And the spasticity has returned. Like it has not as bad as it was before, but it has returned. Not fully, but
And then do they know why it returns?
because your nerves grow back.
Ah,
The
okay.
nerves get destroyed, but they do grow back, but it takes 6 to 9 months. So what it does is it gives you a 6 to 9 month window to do rehab. Whereas I'm sure you're familiar with Botox
Yeah,
treatments. Botox gives you a 3 to 5 week window,
yep.
3 to 4 times a year. This gives you a 6 to 9 month window to gain movement instead of that 3 to 5 week window, which is tiny.
Yeah.
And I
And
did Botox for 14 years and got that much improvement.
Zero. Yeah. I know some people have. It's very hit and miss for a lot of people. What was that treatment called again?
Cryoneurolysis.
All right, everyone, Google the heck out of that. Make it go like I'm not sure
If
what's
you
the word.
Google cryoneurolysis spasticity, I don't know how I could spell it. So Cryoneurolysis,
Yep.
spasticity. There's a YouTube video that
Okay.
the doctor or Dr. Paul Winston.
We're going to find it. We'll have the link in the show notes. We'll make sure people
Yeah,
can watch it, and then I'm going to reach out. I'd love to interview
yeah.
the doctor
Dr.
about
Paul
that.
Winston out of Victoria, British Columbia.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So that's the thing, right? 15 years ago, that wasn't on the horizon. That's not going to be an
Exactly.
option.
That's even 10 years ago. So that's why I'm saying like new things are coming out all the time, so the best time to have a stroke is 20 years from now. Apart from that, it's today.
I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I think I read it about 30 years ago. And in and the book was written in I think the 1920s, and Napoleon Hill has a reputation for being a bit of a um, kind of like a, a capitalist, the worst kind of capitalist. I think he has a bit of a reputation for that. But what he was doing was sharing um, stories about how you think, how you put your mind into work, and the results that it gives you. What you think is perhaps what you're going to get. Anyhow, one of the passages I specifically remember was that his son was born deaf, I believe, either in one ear or in both ears. And the doctors back then said that he'll never be able to hear anything because he has been born deaf. And then, sure enough, the first iteration of hearing surgeries or devices to help people hear start to come start to be invented around 20 or 30 years after his son's born. And sure enough, his son uh,
Right.
gets to be able to hear. And it's the story that you read 100 years after it has been written, and you go, oh man, like the thinking hasn't changed. The way you approach life hasn't changed. The way you talk about problems hasn't changed. Everything is basically the same. We're the same as we were back then. The times and circumstances and some things might be different, but general ways to go
Yeah.
about life never are never different. They're always the same. You always have to have the same philosophies that people have used for thousands of years. That's why we get so much when we learn from the ancient Greeks. It was 2,000 years ago, and we pick up those books and we read about them and we hear about them and we apply them to our lives and we say, wow, that's transformative. Well, it's not. It's just humans. It's just what
Yeah.
humans do. And certain things impact you in a negative way and certain things impact you in a positive way. And if you're a doctor and you go through all the study, all of the cost, all of the effort, all of the hours at the hospital, all of these things, years and years and years, thousands and thousands of dollars, hours and hours and hours. You get a patient, they have a stroke, you patch them up, and just before you send them home, you finish with, you'll never do that again. What was
Yeah.
the point of it all?
Yeah. My doctor actually said to me, after this is after telling me you'll never do blah blah blah. You'll never play piano. You'll never, type use your left hand to type on a computer. And I looked at him and he's like, prove me wrong. Now I haven't been able to do that yet, but I say yet. I always say yet.
Yeah.
But then, years later when I saw him at one of my appointments, he goes, I have to learn more about the human will because I'm seeing that the human will plays a huge role, and I really believe that attitude is everything.
Yeah.
And the best part about a positive attitude and gratitude is that it's free. It doesn't cost anything to be
Yeah.
grateful. And yet it can actually help, it can actually improve your recovery.
Absolutely. There's a chapter in my book about it. It's your mindset. It's the first chapter of my
Yeah.
book. If you've got the wrong mindset, all the rest can forget about it. You
Yeah.
have to have the right mindset. You have to
Well,
apply a recovery
there was a
mindset.
s- there was a study done in the U.S. On U.S. war vets who suffered traumatic brain injuries, and it proved that the ones who were more resilient recovered better and faster and stronger than someone who didn't. And resilience is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So,
Yeah,
you can tap into your resilience, which you have, everybody has. You can actually recover better, stronger, and faster.
I have a
It's like
little
flipping a
theory as well.
switch.
I have a theory about my guests on my podcast compared to the people who are not on my podcast. Not saying that everyone has to be on my podcast to have the
Why
like
not?
to
Sure they
show.
do.
They do. I need to get to 1,000 episodes, but that's not the point. The point is, like, people who are sharing on the episode are demonstrating something every
Yeah,
single episode, and every person is different, but they are all demonstrating something. And that something to me is like the willingness to talk about, learn from, expand your mind, your horizons, share information that you've gained and learned. And those things come together and are a very important part of your healing and your recovery. The willingness to want to turn up to a podcast and share your story in the hope
yeah,
that it might help other people says something about how far your recovery has come. And that doesn't mean that the amazing people who leave comments, who subscribe, who help me with Patreon, who watch the YouTube ads, it doesn't mean that they're not doing that. What I'm sort of saying is that I think that sharing on a podcast, regardless of whose it is like shows you've arrived. It's the next level, the thing that you what else can I do to improve my recovery? I've done nutrition. I'm sleeping better. I'm exercising more. I'm more grateful. I have I've improved my relationships. Like, what's next? Well, now it's
right.
about other people. It's how do I impart my wisdom, my knowledge, the things that I've gained onto other people.
To help others. Yeah,
That whole thing sort of suggests that um, you've arrived, not at the very end of the whole thing, but at a next stage, the next level. I'll call it the next kind of like, um, well, we'll just call it a stage. You've
the
arrived.
Gassiamus effect.
Yeah. Whatever.
You like
We'll
that?
give him my one. Yeah, we'll give him my Gassiamus. You've arrived to stage Gassiamus or something. I don't know. No, not at all. It doesn't have to be on my podcast.
I know.
But you know what I'm saying? It's about that
Yeah,
you've made it about our others. It's not about you anymore. Even though the podcast sharing is about you, it's also not about you.
yeah,
And I think that would be lovely if people said, I've been listening for 3 years and now I've finally decided to reach out to be on the show. I mean, that would be great because they perhaps gained courage, they perhaps gained confidence, they perhaps gained wisdom, knowledge. It's a
yeah.
stage. You have
It's a
arrived
stage. Yeah,
somewhere. Yeah.
for
So
sure.
I love what you're saying there. And the statistics are statistics for a reason. They are just there to inform a way forward from a certain situation out of a hospital, just for the time being, as statistics never stay the same. They always change as the population changes, as our abilities change, as our technology changes. Statistics always move. And you can't take one snapshot in history and go, I'm going to apply that to every single stroke survivor I meet afterwards for the next 15 years. It's not smart. That's not what you do. You use it to inform your decision at the time, but then at some point, those statistics are no longer relevant because things are completely different. And anecdotal evidence should inform you enough to say, okay, I've told 10 stroke survivors they're never going to do X again, and I never followed up to find out if they did do X. And that's my biggest challenge is they make a statement, they send you on
Right.
their way, and they never call you up and say, by the way, did you ever walk again or whatever again? And it frustrates me no end. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. Don't believe them.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, like I was talking with my physiotherapist a couple weeks ago about, recovering my arm, and I'm putting in, 3 to 4 hours a day of rehab just in my arm, for the past year, and in hopes that I'm going to get the use of my arm back.
Yeah.
I have no guarantee. There's zero guarantee. There's hope. And that's what I have hope that it will, make a difference. And he said to me that the reason that there's just, there isn't documentation for somebody 15 years post-stroke
Yeah.
who's putting in, this many hours a day, the statistics aren't there. So then it's just all on me. So you'll get it, you'll get the use of, you get partial use of your arm, all of it, or you won't get any, or, well, I already have some, I can already, do some things with
Yeah.
it, but, um,
One guarantee is that if you do nothing, you'll definitely get nothing.
that's my saying. I have a quote. There's two guaranteed things in life, death and taxes. I found a third. Do nothing and nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Do something and you can get this much, or that you don't know.
Yeah.
But you don't know if you don't try.
You have to go after it. I completely agree. So, looking back on your journey, 15-year journey, how have you changed physically, emotionally, and or mentally? Are you a more expanded version of yourself? What are the biggest lessons been?
Ooh, that's a big question. Physically, I'm like I'm independent. I drive a car. I do my grocery shopping. I run errands. You know, able to. I'm physically active. Um, Not like I was before, obviously, but I am physically active. Um, my husband and I are traveling the world. It's something that we really want to do. Coming to Australia is going to be is a big trip. It's, we're going to be doing a lot, and I didn't want to give it up, and I didn't want to give up something that I love to do, so I'm doing it. It's a challenge. We've had some interesting challenges, but we just kind of, I suck it up and do whatever, just do the best that I can do, given the situation. And I've learned to be more accepting of myself and learned to not give up things that I want, but accept
Them in a different
um
way.
accept them in a different way. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um I believe I'm more grateful for what I have than probably what but prior to. Um More accepting of people, other people as well. Um it's so hard to say because I don't remember I never asked myself like what was I like before? Like
Oh.
I don't remember. So long ago. I was 41 years old when this happened, so I don't remember. Like I think, what's interesting is that, right after the stroke, I could remember everything, exactly the way I was and how I was post and pre. And, you know, what I felt when I had a bad day, it felt like it was like a really bad day, even though, people can have stroke survivors have bad days, normal people, regular people have bad days. And what I didn't realize, what my social worker points out to me, she's like, a lot of people put their pre-stroke life on a pedestal and they think that they were here when they probably were here.
Wow.
And now they're here. So they think that they've fallen, so much further than they actually did,
Wow.
because pre-stroke was this glorious life where you never broke a nail and nothing bad ever happened, you know, and we all know that that's just not true, right? So when she said that to me, I realized that the fall, yes, I fell, but I didn't fall as far. I didn't fall, but pedestal wasn't the drop wasn't as big as I thought.
Wow.
That helped me kind of put things into perspective. But now that it's been so many years, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think I was as good of a person as thin as I am now.
I love it. I love it. the fall, how far you've fallen, that's really amazing, isn't it? That's all tied to identity, I think. If you
Yeah,
identified as somebody who, if your identity was shallow or confined to some small number of things, I am a office worker, or I'm a gym junkie, I am a whatever I am, and there wasn't a larger version of that. And now you're not those things, then you can see the fall from grace supposedly could be
yeah,
appear more dramatic than it is. And then the idea is to expand your identity, is to find, even though I've had a stroke, what can I become? It's not about what I was. And why can't you be a gym junkie that has left side deficits? I mean, I've interviewed stroke survivors who were power lifters. One particular lady was a power lifter. Her left side, I think, was the of a scrawny little kid. Her right side was the size of a power lifter. She was completely out of
right.
whack, but she was a power lifter. And that's the thing. We haven't. Um, you've got the opportunity to redefine your identity and to start moving in directions you'd never done before. I mean, there's so many stroke survivors who have probably won gold medals at the Paralympics and on all sorts of world stages that weren't in that space before stroke. It never occurred to them to do or to compete in that kind of way until after they had their stroke. So you that it's just imaginary. The whole pedestal that we fall off of is imaginary.
100%.
And if you sort of associate your success with I achieved X, Y, and Z, or I had this much money, or I worked that many hours, or then again you're limiting yourself based on what you do, not who you are as a human person. Like
Yeah.
what you do
And
is
that's what I mean. What I before you asked me, what was I before my stroke? I was a full-time working super mom,
yeah,
who would try to do, multitask as much as possible. So when my kids went to karate, I went grocery shopping and, at the same time, because God forbid I should spend the 45 minutes watching them do karate, I had to go do an errand because I was working during the day. Um, and try and kill as many birds with one stone kind of thing as possible was my goal. After my stroke, I couldn't read a magazine and eat breakfast at the same time because if I would either read and forget to eat or eat and forget to read. So I couldn't like that's considered multitasking. I couldn't do that. And, as a point, once I was able to do it, now I read during breakfast every day as kind of as a screw you to the stroke kind of thing.
it's training as well. It's multitasking and it's helping neuroplasticity and all sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love it. So you probably see stroke as something that shaped you in a very meaningful way.
yes. It's given me a purpose for sure to help others, and it's really given me, I went from accounting, which is great, but it's a job, to actually helping people with helping people get their lives back.
Yeah. And it gave you meaning, not like you didn't have meaning before. You had children and you
Yeah,
had family and you had all that
different.
kind of stuff, but it's expanded it, right? So that's a thing. That's another thing that people don't seem to realize early days of stroke is that meaning doesn't have to end because you had a stroke and now you're not doing all the things you did before. Your meaning can also be expanded. You can be a parent even though you're not the karate going parent anymore. You can still parent in a different way.
In fact, actually, right after my stroke, when I couldn't do anything except for sit on a couch basically and watch TV all day, I felt like I had lost my identity, and somebody said to me, you're still a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. And so I could be all these people from the spot on the couch,
Yeah.
right? I could play all these, I could still, nag my husband. I could still, you know, give him crap when he did something. I could still tell my children what to do. I could still do all those things. Could still, have lunch with my sister or my friends. I could still do all these things from the very comfort of my couch.
Yeah.
You know, being unable to walk, being unable to uh, move, to drive a car, to work, to do all these things.
Yeah.
And so when I realized I could wear all these caps in the comfort of my house, the comfort of my couch, that helped me. That gave me hope that I'm not useless,
Yeah.
because I did feel useless at the beginning.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yes.
what good am I? I can't do anything. I can't do anything.
Well, it's such a big shift and a very quick shift from being super mum to being couch mum.
To not even being able to go to the bathroom by myself.
Yeah.
Right? Like
It's dramatic. It's so dramatic, and it completely makes sense. People find themselves there. The idea is, okay, it's temporary. It is. It might seem like forever when you're going through it, and it might feel
yeah.
like never ending, but it is temporary. Now, in the span of a lifetime, it's temporary. In in the span of the 2 months since the stroke and since you found yourself on the couch not being able to do anything, okay, it seems like forever, but it's gonna go. It'll pass. You'll look back and you'll go, my gosh, it was 5 years ago I had this stroke, or it was 10 years ago I had this stroke. I can't believe how quickly it has gone for me and seemed slow at the same time. I'm experiencing, two versions of time all at the same time: quickness and slow.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know how I got here that quickly, and it took so long. Does that make sense?
It's so true. And I was in the hospital for 4 months.
Yeah.
So this was, I didn't get home until 4 months post-stroke. And then I still couldn't go to the bathroom on my own. But as a 41-year-old mother who toilet trained 3 children, I was determined. So the first thing I learned to do when I came home from the hospital was teach myself to go to the bathroom by myself.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing I did, and I did it pretty quickly. I think, I don't remember how many weeks it took, but
Yeah.
look, I just want to go to the bathroom, close the door, not if somebody's standing next to me.
That's
Yeah.
a fair request. That's a
Yeah.
fair
Well,
request.
because you literally take your dignity and leave it somewhere else after a stroke for many people. And
Yeah. That's a very, very, very important milestone in anyone's recovery to be able to toilet themselves.
did
Um,
you have physical deficits after your stroke?
yeah, so I had, I was physically, I was all good until surgery, and then after surgery, one of the complications was I woke up with left side deficits. Couldn't feel my left side, couldn't walk,
Oh,
couldn't use my left arm, a whole lot, and had sensory issues. Had still have a little bit of still have numbness and um, a little bit of spasticity. It doesn't close any of my fingers up, but I feel it in my muscles, the way that they open and expand and contract. They get painful. Um, it puts me out of balance on my leg, so my leg is a little bit weaker, my left leg, so I tend to sway a little bit when I walk. Um, I I bump into my wife all the time when we walk next to each other, and she's always complaining, Why do you keep bumping into me?" 'Cause it's
wow.
like I become magnetic.
Call love touches. All love touches. That's
Well,
what you
yeah,
should tell.
yeah, something
Love
like.
touches.
I'll yeah, I'll rename him actually. Yeah, I love that. And what happened after surgery was I found myself uh, day day one out of surgery. Nurse came to me at my bed and said, "Have you been to the toilet yet?" I said, "No." Said, "Okay, let me help you go to the toilet." She was on my left side. I reached off the left side of the bed, put my left leg down, and I'm not sure, I'm like hours out of surgery, collapsed
Um,
in intensive care or wherever I was, whichever unit I was in. I don't think it was intensive care. It might have been high dependency. And I'm on my ass hours after surgery. First fall after surgery, what with the nurse standing next to me. She was tiny. I'm I'm not quite 6'4". I'm probably about 5'8", 5'9", and she was tiny compared to me. and she probably
Oh,
weighed
wow.
half what I weigh. And she goes, I'll help you and put your arm around me. Well, it made no difference. I put my arm around her and I was just bang straight on the ground. Um, and screamed my lungs out and then realized, okay, I cannot walk. Then they put me back into the bed and my surgeon comes along and she goes, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, I can't walk. I fell out of my bed." And she said, "Okay, I'll put you into rehab." In rehab, I got to rehab 7 days later. By the time I went through all the after surgery stuff, and they were trying to suss out my situation where I was at. And I remember being in the ward now, waiting, uh, day two, I'd say, being in the ward, waiting for the nurse to come after I pressed the buzzer to go to the toilet, knowing I can't walk. And they've put me on laxatives, slow release laxatives for 2 days so that the bowels can move because they hadn't moved yet. And then they kicked in, and then I'm on in my bed. The nurses aren't coming back after I've pressed the buzzer, and there's a wheelchair next to my bed, and I lean forward with my right side. I grab the wheelchair and I drag
Oh,
myself
no.
off the bed, and I end up in the wheelchair, and I can't push it much, but I'm pushing it as much as I can to get to the door of the toilet, which is at the end of my bed. It's literally 3 meters away, 4 meters away, to get to
Right.
the end of my bed. And I get into the toilet. I open the door, get into the toilet door, and the nurse turns up and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm trying to go to the toilet." She goes, "You're supposed to wait for us." I said, "I've been waiting for ages and I've got to go. I'm busting. I've got to go. Please get me onto the toilet." They get me onto the toilet and then they're not leaving. And I said to her, um, "Okay, you can
Yeah.
go now.
Okay.
Leave." And she's like, "I can't leave you in here alone. You're at high risk of falls, all that kind of stuff. I have to stay with you." I said, "There is no way I'm going to let you stay there. You have to. Please close the door. Just go to the other side of the door. Please do not stay in here with me." We argued for what seemed like forever. We didn't really argue, right? I was just begging her, basically. I got to begging. And she finally said, "Okay, I'm going to go behind the door. Do not get up. Do not move." I said, "I swear to God, I'm not going to move or do anything. I'm just going to do what I have to do, and I'll call you as soon as I'm done." And sure enough, we went through that process and we got done. But that was my first experience, my realization that things are not well and things are not going exactly as I planned or thought they would. And I've got to have to challenge myself to overcome some more of these issues that I never experienced for 3 years of brain hemorrhages, because I had brain hemorrhages 3 times over almost 3 years. So I had deficits, I had memory issues and cognitive issues and speech issues and um, fatigue and every kind of issue you can possibly imagine after the bleeds, but never anything physical. And
Right.
this was the first time. So it was quite a drama. But like you, I don't know what it was. I just had this weird kind of calm amongst all the chaos, because there was also chaotic moments, etc. I had this weird calm. "Oh, you can't walk. Oh, all right. Well, we're going to have to learn how to walk again." I wasn't quite concerned that I
Yeah.
couldn't walk. I was just concerned that I couldn't go to the toilet on my own. And I didn't know if that would come back or not, but it was a big drama right there. After the moment passed, I went back to regular, chill, relaxed Bill in the bed, just waiting for things to happen. So I had this under, I had this calm about all the obstacles that were in front of me. I just figured they were obstacles. It may have helped that I did a lot of counseling and coaching beforehand. It may have helped that I had already started to kind of reach out to medical professionals and learn about neuroplasticity and all that type of stuff. But I didn't take any of the setbacks as permanent. I just took them as stuff I've got to overcome. I didn't know how.
Yeah, me too. I think for me it was just delusional or just not, I didn't understand the gravity of what had happened.
Yeah,
It was like, okay, this is what this is. I can't walk right now. I can't do this. Okay, well, I will. It's going to take, I'll rehab.
yeah,
Like, I'll rehab, just like, yeah, I'll just rehab my way back.
Yeah, and I had this bigger picture understanding, where I and I love to throw in this example every time I remember it in a podcast episode. It's like Stephen Hawking, the great physicist, who was at the
Yeah,
top of his field and had zero ability to move a single muscle in his body for the majority of his adult life. And it's like, if that's the if that's what's possible, well then, I don't need to get overwhelmed or uh, overly concerned about all the challenges that I might face that I don't know about, because that's what it was possible for this guy.
great way of looking at it. Yeah.
So once you sort of expand your thoughts about like what people are achieving in life and who is the most limited person in the world and achieving the most in the world, Stephen Hawking, well then, I don't know what's the excuse to focus on all of the problems and all of the deficits and all of the obstacles? What's the excuse? There's no credible reason to be focusing on all the things that we can't do.
That's actually a really good way of, I didn't, they never thought of that, but you're 100% right.
Once you start at that level, it's like, okay, well, all the rest is in the mind. It's all arguably it's all bullshit. It's all just shit you coming up with to limit yourself because you're afraid
Yeah.
or something.
And for me also, like I also learned, 10% of people who have a stroke die,
Yeah,
and I didn't. And so there's just based on the fact that I'm alive, there's a greater purpose for me. I
yeah,
didn't survive just, is it just luck? I don't buy it.
yeah,
There's a reason.
yeah.
Also my in addition to okay, what I said, best thing I said earlier. So when I had my twin daughters were born via gestational surrogate, with 3 years of infertility. And then they were born. And then when they were 14 months old, I got pregnant. We call it immaculate conception because we have no idea. We had two 14-month-old babies, walking around, crawling around. And so we weren't looking for a third, or it wasn't planned. And um so when something good happens, you call it a blessing. So what do you see? You call it a curse when something bad happens?
Oh,
I don't believe it. I don't believe in curses.
yeah,
So um I remember when I got pregnant with my son, I remember thinking how the stars had to have been lined up just so for me to get pregnant with all the issues that I had. And so it was meant to be. So my because my ski accident was also a freak accident, the stars were lined up just so for this to have happened. It's meant to be. So if it's meant to be, then there's going to be something. There's good has to come from this. And so, like I said, I was like looking for it for a while, and then eventually, I found the good in helping other people, and it made me feel good, and I was helping other people as well, and just gave me a sense of purpose.
yeah. The
Greater than more beyond being an accountant.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that goes without saying, right?
Yeah. Did you put away your skivvy and your blouse and all that kind of stuff that
We
accountants
don't have
wear?
that. That
Yeah,
we don't have that.
don't have that anymore.
No, we never did. Accountants, that was for lawyers, not
Ah,
accountants get a calculator.
a calculator. I love it. I
But
love it.
actually, my son is actually in school to become an accountant, and my father was an accountant. So if he passes his exams this September, he'll be the third generation in our family.
Yeah.
So, and
So
I'm helping him along.
there's a history there. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great
Yeah.
profession. Of course, we're just playing around. If anyone is an accountant, don't get offended. We love accountants. They keep us
Yes.
probably paying less tax or
Keep
something.
you out of jail. Yeah.
Yeah, and out of jail. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you and chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining
Same
on the
here.
podcast.
Same.
I've got one question that kind of comes up every so often is why why after 15 years is it necessary for you to join me on the podcast? Like, do you know what I mean? Who's thinking about, I always think about me as being strange and bizarre that I'm 12 years out and I'm still thinking about stroke and talking about it every day. Like, why do you feel the need to still share about it on the podcast?
Because I feel like I've been successful. Not 100%, but I feel like I've been successful. And so if I can do it, I think other people can too. And as long as I believe that, you know, we have a joke because when I'm speaking, my husband refers to me as the goat of stroke survivors, you know, and so maybe he refers to me as that, but I think that I'm just one of, thousands of other people just like me, if you get the right, maybe navigation, you know, tools, you can be just like me too and have success.
I love it. I love that you have success and it's despite what you didn't get back or what you potentially supposedly lost. You still have
I'm
experienced,
grateful. I have
yeah,
a good life.
success. Yeah.
I have a good life.
I love that. That's a great way to frame it is even after all this time, you've had success. And that is what I hope for every stroke survivor listening is that they can get to that stage where they can feel like they've had success, a small one, a little one, a big one.
Yeah, and what we do, I should have mentioned this earlier, what we do in our family, my husband started this 4 years post-stroke, is every year on the anniversary of the accident, we celebrate with a cake and we put a word on the cake. So the first year was my husband and daughter were talking the day before, like on February 12th, 2014. He goes, "Do you know what tomorrow is?" She goes, "Yeah, it's the day mommy had her accident." And he said, he goes, "How should we celebrate it?" She goes, "We should buy a cake." And he goes, "Okay, let's put a word on the cake. What word should it be?" She goes, "Accomplishment." And then every year, my other daughter picked the word. The following year, my son. Then it was my husband's turn, and then it was my like so we have every year. I've got like I don't know, it's 12 years now. 12 years of 12 cakes, and every year there's a word. So now I look every February 13th. We look forward to what's the word going to be. We figure out who's going to pick it, whether it's someone in the family or a close friend. And I look forward to the anniversary to see what word is going to be chosen.
Yeah, that's a great way to reframe it and an amazing tradition. I love it.
Yeah.
On that note, Laura Kaufman, the goat of stroke recovery, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we wrap up, another thank you to Banksia Tech for supporting this episode and making stroke rehabilitation tools like the Hansen Rehab Glove accessible to more stroke survivors. If hand movement is part of your recovery, this glove might help. Visit banksiatech.com.au or use the links in the show notes and the YouTube description. Now, let's pause and reflect. Lara Kaufman didn't just endure a massive ischemic stroke caused by an internal carotid artery dissection. She didn't just survive paralysis, craniotomy, and years of uncertainty. She went further. She mentored other survivors. She co-facilitated support groups. She even tried a cutting-edge treatment, cryoneurolysis, and saw breakthrough results. And every year, she celebrates her stroke anniversary with her family by choosing a word and putting it on a cake. A word like accomplishment, gratitude, purpose. But she's not just recovering. She's redefining success one word, one step, one story at a time. If this episode resonated with you and you'd like to help me reach 1,000 stroke survivor interviews, consider supporting the podcast on Patreon. Your support covers the editing, publishing, and sharing of real recovery stories like Lara's. Just go to patreon.com/recovery after stroke. And if you want more stories of post-traumatic growth, check out my book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, written by a survivor for survivors. Links are in the show notes and YouTube description. Until next time, keep enduring, keep redefining, and remember, you're not just relearning, you're rebuilding. See you on the next one.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.